In this video I'm going to show you how you can add a 35mm transparency film slide border around any photo, like the example that we've got here, using Photoshop elements. So let's go to our photo. I've opened it here in Photoshop. The first thing we want to do is to resize it, because there's no point working with a full-size image if you're just going to be creating something to put on the web at a small size. So we start off by reducing the size of the image, which will make it easier to work with. So I want resample image ticked here, constrained proportions ticked, and I'm just going to set the width to 640 pixels and put OK. That's resized that image. It's going to hit Control and 1, or it'd be Command and 1 on a Mac, to bring the image to 100% viewing size. So got our image here at the size I want it to be in the final output. Now let's go to Image and Resize and Image Size again. Now this time we're not going to actually resize the image, but we're just going to set the size of the image. So we want to untick resample image, and we want to set the measurement to millimeters, and we're going to set the width to 36 millimeters, and that is the size of a frame of 35mm film, which is why we're going to do that. And it will automatically change that part for us. If you were using a portrait orientated image, then you'd want the height to be 36mm rather than the width. And then we can just put OK on that. And as you can see, it doesn't do anything. But because we've set that to 36mm, we can now go to Image, Resize. Well, actually, before we do that, we need to make sure that our background layer here is not a background layer, but it is a standard layer. So if I double click on the layer, it lets me give it a name. So I'm just going to call it Photo, put OK, and now that is a standard layer. And now we can go to Image, Resize and Canvas Size. I'm going to change the measurement to inches. I'm going to set it to 2 and by 2, which is the same size as a 35mm slide frame. The anchor we want centered, so that it will keep our photo in the center of the slide. Click OK on that. I'm going to hit Control and 0, or it would be Command and 0 on a Mac, to make our image fit to the screen. And you can see we've now got this checkerboard pattern means that it's transparent around the edge of our photo. If we hadn't changed this from a background layer to a normal layer, then this area around here would not be transparent, but it would be filled with whatever colour we had as our background layer here. So it's why it's important to change this to a normal layer rather than a background layer before we resize the canvas. So now what we want to do is we're going to create our slide frame. We want to go to the shapes, and we want a rounded rectangle. Border radius will depend on how large your image is. So that is, the radius is how curved the corners are. So for this image I'm going to select 20. I'm going to click at the top left corner of the image and then bring it down to the edge, and that has made our slide frame. I'm going to reduce the opacity of the layer so we can see through to the photo layer before, and still on the shape tool I'm now going to select a rectangle. On the options here we want to make sure that it's exclude overlapping shape areas. And we're now going to draw a rectangle over our photo. And as you can see, because we've set it to exclude, it cuts out a rectangular shape from our slide layer, letting us see the photo layer below. So we can now put the opacity of that layer back up to 100%. To make it easier to see our slide shape, I'm going to expand the canvas again. So image, resize, canvas size, and I'm going to go back to inches, and I'm just going to set this to 3 by 3. Put OK on that. Hit Control and 0 again, or Command and 0 on the Mac to fit the image to screen. And I'm going to create a solid color fill layer to act as our background layer. We don't need a layer mask on it. Just going to pull it down to the bottom of the layer stack. Going back to our shape layer, we need to add some noise to the layer to give it a slightly speckled appearance, so it'll look more realistic. So I'm just going to click on this, drag it up to the new layer icon to create a duplicate of it. We can't apply filters to shape layers, so it's going to rasterize the layer, which is why I've created a duplicate. That way we still have our original shape layer that we can go back to in the future if we want to. So go to, with our copy of the shape layer selected, I'm going to go up to Filter, Noise, Add Noise, and it will say that it wants to rasterize the layer. That's okay. And that's possibly a bit too much there. I'm going to change the amount to 5%. Distribution is Gaussian, and we've got it monochromatic. The amount setting will depend on how large your image is. So for this size image, I think 5% works quite well. So I'm going to click OK on that. And the next thing we want to do is add a drop shadow, which will make this look like an actual slide. So go down to Effects, and then click on Drop Shadow and double click on that to apply it. Now go back to the Layer Palette, double click on the little FX icon here, and then here we can change the settings. So I'm just playing around with the settings a little bit. And I think that probably looks quite good. I'm just going to put OK on that. Again, the settings that you choose for the drop shadow, how large it is and that kind of thing, will depend on how large your image is. So we've got this now. It looks quite like a proper slide with the shadow and everything. And the final thing you might want to do is add some text to it. The text is a bit too big, so it's going to reduce the size there. That's maybe slightly too small. Move that down a little bit and rotate it slightly, just because if you when you write on a slide, it's unlikely you'd write exactly parallel with the photo and the edges of it. And I think that is just about done, really. You can see for the text I've used a kind of handwriting font. I think that looks a bit more sort of realistic, because if you did have a slide, you might write on it by hand what the photo was of. It's unlikely you'd have sort of typed writing on the slide other than manufacturer information. And I think that's it.